Do you have a minute for Comadre?
Hola, Comadres. Welcome back to another episode of Comadreando. We're starting season 6. It's been quite a long hiatus. I know some of you have been complaining. However, today we're kicking off the season with an amazing episode featuring some so amazing bomb women. And I will let them introduce themselves. Who are you? We can start with Susan and then we'll just go around.
Hi, my name is Susan Garcia, and I'm a small business owner. I own Create a Cocktail. It is a do-it-yourself mixology service class where I teach you how to make your own drink. And I also have a bartending service where I do the tri-state area and Miami. I do it with my daughter, so she's in Miami while I'm here in this dreary New Jersey. I have a 5-year-old child on the spectrum. He's a boy. I also have 2 neurotypical older children. And this is my first journey. So I'm trying to learn from Marcy and other moms. And I'm just here to absorb, take everything.
Amazing. Okay, next person. Denisse.
Hi, I'm Denisse. I have 2 children. My son is 9 years old. He's on the spectrum. And I also have a daughter, and she has some neurological rare disease disorder. And I am a stay-at-home mom to my 2 beautiful kids. And I am also... I feel kind of like not a newbie on the journey, but definitely when I'm stepping into the Comadreando space with Marcy, I'm like, I have a lot to learn. So I'm glad to be here with you guys.
And then our last guest, Belen.
My name is Belen. I am a behavior analyst from Phoenix, Arizona. I work in the early intervention space in ABA. And I'm a step parent to 2 little neurotypical cuties.
Aw, amazing. All right. So, ladies, thank you so much for being on the show, number 1. I always like to tell the comadres how I met my guests. So, Susan and I connected via Instagram. She was a fan of the show. Then we started talking. We're actually planning an event probably this winter coming up. Then Denisse and I, besides being connected through the show, we're also Kundalini yoga practitioners, and we have done a couple of 40-day sadhanas together. And then Belen, I was on a rampage, following all these BCBAs, and I finally found one that was bilingual, which is hard. I didn't know that was a rare thing. So yeah, so I found Belen, and I was like, oh my god. And then our topic literally fell into our lap. Was it last weekend, Susan? Or was it Monday or something? It was something like Monday or the weekend.
I feel like, yeah.
That it was this viral story about this mom regarding discipline and BCBA. So we're going to kind of introduce the show, and then we're going to get into the different parts because I feel like everything's very nuanced. So today's topic is disciplining and setting boundaries for children with special needs. And the reason why the topic came up is that there was a very controversial post that was posted on our IG, which we received so much feedback. There are 2 sides to this, which is are obviously pros and cons, but I feel like it's not as black and white as people want to make it seem. And this is definitely a deal breaker, and I feel like their style of parenting differs a lot. But I feel like when it comes to children with special needs, people want to become a monolith, but it's really not that, because our kids' needs are just as different as they are, right? They're like snowflakes. Not that they're special little snowflakes, but they have all these differences in behavior. And I feel like there's not a one size fits all necessarily. But the story that we are talking about is this mom that, what is her name? So I took notes, y'all. You know how I am. Her last name's Ulric. They were saying that she was being cruel because her son, actually that day in school, he put his hands on people, and it was his birthday. So that day she decided to take away, he was gonna get an iPad and Robux or something, and mom decided that was not a good idea. So she decided to have him write an apology letter. I mean, he still had the option of playing with other things. So like it wasn't like he was just sitting in a corner and like completely punished, but she didn't give him the thing that he was motivated by. So the behavior that he was doing it on purpose to escape. So every, like I've spoken on the show before, every behavior has a purpose. So his specifically was escaping the school environment to go home, obviously to play Roblox and do all these other things. So
Mhm.
yeah, so I know you girls had a chance to read the article and talk about it. So whoever wants to jump in, that's cool with me.
I'll go first. I mean, I read the article and I was completely like, okay, like that sounds good to me. Like he did something bad. He needs to understand that this is what he did. Like if he doesn't get it now, then when is he gonna get it? So like we got to do it now, and that's it. Like I'm gonna obviously take away what you want. I would do it with the neurotypical kids. I'm gonna do it with you too. I may not be able to do like have a whole full blown conversation and so that you understand, what you did wrong, but there is going to be a
Yeah.
consequence because at one point I cannot have you continue doing this. So like I felt like, my son's already 5. I was telling Marcy like he's already starting to kind of test me and I'm like, okay, let's do this because I just can't let you get away with everything. I can let you get away with some, but not everything, and especially not hitting. Like I don't honestly know what I'm gonna do if that has to turn that way because it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. So I'm like I can't let him do that right now. So I was completely okay with it, and like she said, like you could still go and play. You could be on your trampoline. You can play, with your Play-Doh. You could do, or whatever it is that he liked to do. You're just not going to get what you really like because you got to understand the
Hmm.
consequences.
How did you feel about the article, Denise?
So I think that the what drew everybody in was the birthday
Hmm.
piece, I think,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you saw that, you were like, okay, so it's your birthday, can you cry if you want to on your birthday?
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like that's why I was like, well, it depends, right? So I completely agree with the withholding piece. And I think that that is a parenting tool, not tactic. I think that that is a tool across the board, especially with our kiddos. Like, what's motivating? That's going to make you work or
Mm-hmm.
listen,
Hmm.
right? So I definitely agree with that. Where I think is like gets a little sticky for me is like, okay, it's your birthday.
Hmm.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Is this
Yeah.
something that you're going to do that I'm going to give in every single time that you're going to do it, but maybe on your birthday,
Hmm.
but also it depends on, and this is what I told Marcy, is like, on like the comprehension, right? So like, do they even
Yeah.
understand that it's their birthday? Are they going to understand that you're taking it away specifically on this day? This is what you were going to get as a birthday
Hmm.
gift. Or is it going to be like, oh, I wasn't able to play my game? So I think that it all is like that's what drew me in a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
that little birthday piece. But I'm not disagreeing with what she, how she went about parenting. I just feel like that birthday piece is a little bit like that's your
Yeah.
birthday, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's where as like a parent you have to kind of tread that line sometimes, right? Because you don't want to be a drill sergeant all the time either.
I know.
You can ask anybody in my family. I'm not a pushover, in any sense of the word with my kids, but I feel like it's your birthday. You know what I'm saying? So that's where
You got
I
to pick your
feel.
battles.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to pick your battles. Yeah. I mean, but you have to pick your battles with all the type of
Hmm.
children. You know, try having a teenage girl. Like that was hard. That was harder than this. Like I'm like, so
Oh my
just letting
goodness.
you know.
That's the truth.
That was a teenage girl going through her hormones.
Oh
Woohoo!
my goodness, Belen. So one of the things that stood out to me in the article was that she said that she posted a video explaining her disciplinary decision and how it relates to ABA. Right. According to Autism Speaks, ABA therapy strongly focuses on reinforcing positive behaviors while discouraging negative ones. So as your take as a ABA therapist, or as a BCBA rather, like what would be your suggestion, or what is your opinion about the decision she took, specifically because one, it was his birthday, two, because like the behavior was like really extreme, and then the motivation for the behavior, which was escaping and like getting what he wanted.
Yeah, I agree with what Denise said, where there's a lot of variables to this. And then the day specifically that it happened being on his birthday, like that just adds another kind of layer to it. But again, I don't, like Denise, I don't agree or disagree with what the parent did. As a parent, you know, she's kind of entitled to discipline as she wishes, and I don't necessarily think that she did anything wrong per se. Again, the birthday piece adds that, like, oh, it's your birthday. But from a behavior analytics standpoint, I would want to look at the antecedent interventions tried. Like, are there, like the comprehension piece, does the student know how to ask for breaks if he needs to escape the environment? Are there other things in place? I saw that they tried like a token system for Robux. But maybe the student's just not there yet, so it's not motivating enough. So I'd want to see those other variables that come before the behavior, because the thing about punishment is that it comes after the behavior already happened. So I'd want to look at, like, what are some things we can do before, what are the preventative measures, and what kind of goals are we working on to try to motivate this student? Like, why can he only play at home? Is there a way that we can integrate that into, you know, his class day to make it a little bit more motivating until he gets there? So just really looking at if we are, as the professionals and as his care team, meeting him where he's at.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then one thing that I do want to point out is that I feel like I'm like in this weird space that I'm a teacher and like a special education teacher, and I'm a parent of a child with special needs, and I don't know, like I feel I'm not in disagreement with the mother. Yes, the birthday thing kind of was like, oh, it's his birthday, no, right? But then, like, you know, our responsibility as parents is being able to have somebody that's going to be viable in society. And one thing stuck out to me that she said was that she's not always going to be there. So her responsibility as a parent, regardless whether he has special needs or not, is whether he's going to be able to be independent. And God forbid, as an adult, like if he gets used to those types of behaviors, you know, nobody, like police officers, are not going to understand that it's his birthday and that it's, you know, that he has special needs, and that they're gonna have a different approach for him. I mean, I feel like the police are getting trained, but I don't know how much training there is, and whether it's like across the board in every state. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And in any situation, would they know to, like, would they remember to check for these things, for these, maybe, like, would they remember to think about that? Like, maybe this person doesn't behave like a neurotypical person. Should I, you know, ask the parent? Should I check? What do I do? I think in an emergency or a crisis, they might not remember to think about that.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. But I also feel like I read that he has like had like a pattern with that behavior. It was almost like it wasn't like the first time that it was occurring. So that's like, to me, is like, you know, something that you're definitely going to want to discuss with your team, right? If that's becoming a pattern where, especially if it's going to be like hitting or anything like that, that's something that you have to have like immediate interventions for, right? Because if that's something that is even a possibility that's going to become a pattern, like you have to think about what's coming beforehand. Like maybe the program is too rigorous. Like something's going on. Is like the child not physically well? You know, I know when my kiddo's not feeling well, and sometimes it takes a couple weeks for that to kind of manifest itself. So I definitely want to take that piece into consideration as well, though. Like because when I read that, I was like, oh, you kind of had a feeling that he was going to try to get out of
School. Yeah.
Yeah. So, when I'm thinking about what's happening before, that's definitely a discussion that should be like, does he need a visual schedule? Can you say like, you're going to spend this amount of minutes like doing something? So I want to take that into consideration too. Like when I'm thinking about his behaviors at school.
And then maybe also reconsidering, is this the best environment for my
Mm-hmm.
child, for them to thrive in, especially if this is a reoccurring thing, then maybe reassessing, do they need more
That's what I was gonna
supports? Do
say.
they need a different environment or a smaller classroom? All of these different variables that may be able to help them succeed.
Right. I mean, you could definitely look at it as an opportunity, right? Because if that's behavior is going to be happening in your class, then I personally, if it was my son, I would be asking what other programs are out there. You know what I'm saying? Because if that type of behavior is going to be happening, that's enough to where you can escalate that to look at other programs and talk to the district if you have to and see if there is
Yeah.
a program with a smaller classroom.
One-on-one. But like he shouldn't even like you said, there could be something else happening as well. Like I did notice that last time my son got really sick, he was horrible behavior wise. And he had a viral infection, and then
Mm-hmm.
those viral infections stay for like 2 weeks. And literally for 2 weeks, I didn't even recognize him. I was like, what is going on? And so, you know, I get it. I get those things contribute. But like you're saying, if she said there was a behavioral pattern that he keeps doing this, and that she thought he was going to do it on that day, you know, but that goes to show that she knew that he understood his birthday, I feel, because sometimes we think that they don't understand, but they are extremely smart. They get everything. And I don't know how we can, I don't know how sometimes you miss it and we don't miss it, but I know that I know like my son understands, and I'm not sure about other children, but he definitely gets when I'm upset, and he definitely gets when he did something wrong. I know when he's playing around, because he likes to do, I don't even know how you say it in English, maldades.
Oh,
How do you
he's
say
like
maldades?
not wicked. What is the word? He likes to play
Like,
tricks on
Like
people, kind of
Like
mischievous.
mischievous.
There we
yes,
go.
but
pranks,
like
yeah, yeah.
mischievous. Like he likes to do little things, and I'm like, what is going on? What is going on? And he's like,
Yeah,
like with a little evil laugh. But I know when he's doing
yeah,
that, so that's why I'm like, oh my god, is this kid gonna do this to me all the
Retesting the
time?
boundaries all
yeah.
over
Right,
again.
So one thing
right. So
okay, sorry, go ahead, Susan. So
that was
yeah, so
it.
one thing I wanted to say is that when Aiden was younger, like let's say pre-K, kindergarten, like I want to say all the way to like third or second grade, a lot of it depends on the teachers, because the school he went to was like they had ABA principals. They didn't have any ABA in the building. However, there were some teachers who were not as well trained, and I would get these phone calls like, "Oh, he did this during school." Da 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 da. But for me, at that point, Aiden didn't have the comprehension of me reprimanding him at home and taking things away at home where it would stick, and he wouldn't understand why he was being punished. So that's another thing to take into consideration as well. It's like,
So,
what are you doing at school to really curtail the behavior, and also kind of understand why it's happening, and like come up with a comprehensive plan, like Belen said, to be able to avoid, not avoid, but like prevent the behavior from happening, or to anticipate situations that are gonna trigger this behavior and change it around for the child in a way that it's going to be more positive for them, or that they're going to learn different skills to cope.
Right. Now, you bring up a good point now that you say that, because I'm sure that consequence wasn't immediate. So, in my training and my professional background, whatever reinforcement, punishment, whatever it is, has to come immediately after, so that, to make
they
that
get it.
link. If it's too delayed, if, the kiddo, we had to wait for mom to come pick him up, he waited in the office for an hour, however long, let's say, and then had to go home, and then it occurred, there was too much time, and depending on the kiddo, he may or may not have connected the link that because I did this, this happened.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
Right. And then another piece of the article was like, he had to write a letter.
Mm-hmm.
Like she made him. So I feel like it was like a lot of different pieces here.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I totally agree with Marcy. Like my son is 9. He understands consequences to a certain extent. It's not something where it's like a true understanding of like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
There is an immediate, like, you know, my son's favorite thing is the iPad. Like if I'm taking away the iPad, he understands like, oh man, I got to do X,
Mm-hmm.
Y, and Z, or I'm not going to get that iPad. But he's not going to get like, I came home from school, I did something at school, now you're not letting me play the iPad. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I didn't do anything in this situation, so I
Right.
get that. But then like, how old was he? Wasn't he like 14? How old was the child?
I couldn't find the
I couldn't
age.
find the age in the article either.
I feel like he was like a teenager.
Yeah, I think he's an early teen. And the first one that you sent, like, I think he says that he's like 14 or something like that.
Right, and I think that that's where like maybe that's why there was that letter and like the withholding of the gifts and because I feel like, you know, like we've said from the beginning, every child is different. Like there are kiddos on the spectrum that they get it. They understand the letter. They understand the withholding. They get all of that. They understand that if that happens, like they can tell you what happened the last time, X, Y, and Z. Like my kid could never, first of all, my child's not speaking, but even like just understanding them and like being able to walk through that with you. I think that that's, you know, you don't want to just like throw all these things at them and like, I'm parenting in a very positive way here. And like, they're like, okay, like I'll play my game tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, or I'm going to do that same behavior tomorrow,
Right.
You know, so.
Right.
Yeah, and that'll be the indicator of whether that punishment was effective or not.
Yes.
Is if it's not reducing, then it wasn't a punishment. It wasn't, you know, whatever we wanted it to be, and you know, we got to rethink our plan now.
I had a student that used to put his hands on teachers, and then what they would do, I guess it wasn't the right setting for him. They would like call EMS or call mom, which I don't know how legal that is now in New York City. However, that was what was happening, right? The kid put his hands on somebody and it was like complete like World War III meltdown on the floor, screaming. Like we would have to leave him alone with the dean to take care of him. However, it was the motivation for behavior was escape. So like mom would pick him up before the EMS got there, and she'd be like, "Oh, do you want McDonald's?" So like to me in my head, because he knows what he's doing. Like he knew. Like I knew this child, and I had seen him in the classroom. He knew what he was doing. So her like offering him McDonald's is kind of like, oh my god, good job, thank you for like fucking up the teachers, like, you know, thanks for like hating everybody and like messing up the classroom, and here's some McDonald's, because like, oh my god, I love what you're doing. So it you know what I'm saying, like I don't know, like there's a lot of sticky situations, but like that I kind of want to go in a little bit into the ABA principles. So like the definition of punishment, the definition of like positive reinforcement versus negative reinforcement, and how does that differ?
Yeah, I think that's a good foundation to start with. So with reinforcement and punishment, so reinforcement is something that increases a behavior, whether it's desired or not desired. Of course, we want to pick desired behaviors to increase. And punishment is something that decreases a behavior. Positive and negative, I like to think of them more as a plus sign and a minus sign, because it gets a little bit confusing to think of positive and negative. Some people think that it's good and bad, and it's not necessarily that. It can mean that in other contexts, but for ABA principles, positive just means that you're adding something. So that's why I think of the plus sign, and negative just means that you're taking something away.
Taking it away.
So which can be reinforcing. Let's say a student is having trouble completing their work. They use a lot of escape behaviors to avoid doing any work because maybe that's just too much work for them. So maybe to reinforce their completion of work, we take away half of it and work on maybe shaping them up, you know, shaping that stamina to that level. But we'll first start by cutting their work in half, and they'll start, let's say they start completing it. That would be a negative reinforcement because we saw the behavior increase. as we took something away. And then so positive is kind of like the what we typically think of as like praise, giving stickers, high fives, access to toys, things like that. So you're adding a stimulus to help reinforce. And same with the opposite. With positive punishment, you're adding something. So like if I think the typical one is like giving your child chores for, as a consequence, you're adding something in a manner
Okay.
to try to reduce whatever they did before. And then the negative punishment was like this mom that took the kids' gifts away.
So yeah, so I didn't really get the letter part too, Denisse, because I'm thinking, and like you're saying, it has to be immediate, right? The taking away or like whatever the punishment is. I don't get the letter part because you know what I mean. Like I'm sure it's hours later, and
Yeah.
so
I guess that would have been a positive punishment part of it because
she's adding
she
something,
added a task to it for him.
I wish I would know the type of child he was, because then I would want to wonder, like, did he really get that, or is he just doing it because she's saying to do it? Like, does he understand that he's doing it?
I think that's the hard part about this case is that we still have questions about, it's hard to come to it's very gray.
Yeah, because my son is not he's 5 and he's non-speaking as well. He uses his talker to tell me certain things, but like, and he's trying, but I can't see him understanding enough to, do that. But, maybe when he's 14, yeah. I don't know.
I feel like Aiden now, maybe he has that, the permanence of like, oh, I fucked up. Like, mom's going to be so upset when I get home from school. Because, like, one thing that did happen, and I want to just share, like, so when he switched from elementary school that he graduated and went to middle school, he had a spike in behavior. So the spike was that he was, I guess, avoiding work by like hugging like the therapist really tightly. Like, he wasn't putting his hands on kids. He was like going after the therapist, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? So at that point where we like came up with a behavior plan, basically we came up with like a token economy. Like, he needs to be able to check off all these things to be able to earn a star per every period, and then if he earned enough stars, he would be able to use the iPad during lunchtime. Or now the what is it, the timeline is longer, so he has to wait until the end of the school day to be able to use the his iPhone now. So the thing is, we needed to figure out what were the triggers, and what was the purpose of the behavior, because I couldn't understand for the life of me what it was. I'm guessing it was escaping the work, but it was just kind of like, it was a lot because I was getting phone calls all the time, and then people were like calling me on FaceTime like, oh, here, speak to your mother, and then he's like really not understanding, like, why are they calling my mom? Like, what's gonna happen? You know what I'm saying? So it's like there has to be some kind of pairing where you really understand what the child's cognitive levels are, and like whether they have that permanence in their brain that's gonna be like, oh man, I really messed up, like I'm gonna get in trouble when I get home. But like, as far as what Belen is saying, like, there needs to be like an immediate consequence. So like, you calling me, like, okay, I get it, I want to know. However, there needs to be some kind of behavior plan put in place where they're getting consequences right there to their behavior, so that it'll decrease the unwanted behavior, long term. It can't be that you're waiting to tell me after he's already home, and I'm just like, okay, so like, what do I do?
What do I do now?
Yeah, so it's like what do I like? Do I punish them? Do I talk to them? Like, what is the proper approach that's gonna really have an impact and give us that wanted result long term?
So what did you do, Marcy? Now you have to tell me what happened.
No, he eventually, like, we came up with a behavior plan with the stars and stuff, and then now he's at the point that he hands in his cell phone before he gets to school, and he just uses the technology at school just for schoolwork. But it was a long time. It took like the whole first year, so I was constantly getting phone calls, and then like the the behavior plan started working more, so it got reduced. But now he's good. Like, he doesn't really have many issues. He's able to talk now. And then one thing that we do in the morning is that we have like a checklist,
Okay.
that I just remind him of the expected behavior. So, like, we keep our hands to ourselves.
I
If
was
we
gonna
need a
say,
break, we need to ask for one.
yes.
And then the thing is, I gave the teachers the same exact thing. So his 1-to-1 goes over with him in the morning while he's having breakfast. And I do it before I put him on the
Mm,
bus in the morning as well. So that has been working for us. For the past year and a half. So we haven't seen that behavior anymore. But he does have his moments, like when he's not feeling well. But more than anything, he'll like fall asleep in class, which I'm just like,
yeah.
what is it that is not happening at school that's not motivating him enough
Yeah.
to stay awake? But that's another story
Right.
for another day. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what worked for us.
I think that collaboration piece is really
I
important.
like
Just
that.
all
A
the
checklist.
parents, the teachers, any
Mental note.
therapists involved, like to be on the same page, and all of us having the same checklist, all of us having the same intervention plan. If this happens with you, if this happens with me, if this happens at home, we're all kind of
On
setting
the
the
same
same
page.
expectations across the
Exactly.
board and being consistent.
That's another big thing. In ABA, I know that you guys, especially early intervention, you guys work on potty training, right? So so when I was teaching 6 to 1 my first year teaching, I had a couple of children that were not potty trained. Some parents were on board, some parents were not. So it was kind of like, it was hard to see a result in the behavior, like a decrease in, like, having accidents at school when the parents weren't following through. So that's a big thing, like having that collaboration and everybody being on the same page with respect to
Hmm.
what they want for that child, and like what the goal is going to be long term. So yeah, like this parent, I was like potty training her child. She was great. She wouldn't have any accidents at school. And I would tell grandma when she would pick her up, and as soon as she got there, she'd put a pull up on her.
Oh no.
So I'm just
Yeah,
like,
parent
Dude,
follow
I'm
through.
like, fuck me,
I
right?
would have a heart
Like, I'm
attack.
like, having all these, like, because I don't know, potty training's so hard for kids. Psychologically, there's a piece there where kids have issues with like evacuating in the
Hmm.
actual toilet. And then, like, obviously, if your child has sensory issues, bathroom can be scary, like the
The
flushing
toilet
of
can
the
be scary.
toilet. And then, like,
Hmm.
I get
where
it.
does everything go? Like, you don't know. So we're working
Yeah.
with all of this, and then the parent is like, in one fell swoop, kind of like, forget what you guys
Ruins
are
everything
doing,
that you just
forget
said.
that.
My God.
Yeah,
No.
I always tell my families, I'm like, I can't do it by myself. My RBT cannot do it on their own. We all need to, I'm like, at the end of session, they're going to let you know what interval they're on so that you can be taking them every 20, 30, 40 minutes, whatever
Yeah.
they finished off at. Um, and then sometimes I train even like the older siblings, and that way I'm like, if mom can't do it, you got
Yeah.
it, because they have teenagers in the home or whatever, grandma, anybody. I'm like, everybody needs to know.
You need a special training for grandmas. I used to be on point, everybody, and then all of a sudden I took them to my mom's at the beginning and she put him a pull up, and I'm like, no, I don't care if we have to clean pee. He has to learn. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still working on number two. I don't know what it is about number two. He doesn't
Number
always want to
two is
do in the
hard.
potty. But we got number one and we got nighttime so far. I'm going to say knock on wood because anything can change,
Yeah.
right? They regress at all times.
Yeah.
But
Shout out to
I,
him though. That's so
Yeah.
good.
yeah. But number two is a challenge to this still. So I'm like, okay, well, I got
Yeah.
one. So I'm going to
I
take
think in
my
my
win.
experience, number two is always like they'll get pee really quick. I've never had a kiddo get them both at the same time. It's always like one first, and then we work on the other one.
Yeah.
For some
So we're
reason,
still working on the other one.
yeah, number two is a little bit
But
aversive, and I'm like,
I'm
take your
like,
time. We'll keep practicing. We do
yeah,
like
but
exposure things, so like balloons. Then we shape them like a butt and put peanut butter so that they can like practice wiping or practice all the
that's a
steps,
good
all the visuals.
That's a good one. I didn't even think about that.
It's
I
a good
love
one with the
that.
wiping. And I was thinking,
I've never heard of that one.
Got to make it fun for
That's brand
them.
new.
I
Sometimes, yeah,
that's good because I was wondering, like,
drawings,
how do you
action
get them to
figures,
wipe if they don't understand?
hard.
Okay.
That way they know like when to stop and when they can be
ah.
considered clean.
So I mean, I guess if the child has a
Nice.
peanut allergy, you would do like pudding, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it really, really can
Mm.
be anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Or Nutella.
Nutella. I think some of it has.
Sounds
Go
about
ahead.
right, right? Nutella.
That's awesome. So what are some techniques that we can give parents? Because I always like to leave parents with some kind of like takeaway at the end of the show that they can use, or like takeaway regarding deciding whether disciplining like the old school way how we were raised, as opposed to like disciplining this new child that has a different approach to life, or like their brain is wired differently. Um, like what can we leave the parents with? Whoever can jump in.
I would say number
Mhm.
one, communication.
Mm-hmm.
So like my son is 9 now, and like the little things that you're able to do when they're younger, like push them along somewhere, like guide them. Hey, I need you to do that. We can't do that anymore. I would pull my back out if I tried to lift his dead weight. So I think that like even just talking, like that's
Yeah.
really like try to communicate as best as you can. Slow down your speech. Use less words. Don't look for eye contact, especially for like my kiddo. Just make sure that they're listening to you, because like normally, even if you're upset in that moment, like sometimes you can't, you know, have your great low voice. Even if
Yeah.
you are a little bit elevated, slow that speech down, and also just try to communicate, because that's really the only thing that's going to work at that moment, because your child is going to be upset, especially if you're trying to intervene in a
Mm-hmm.
discipline moment, in like not the school but just like you with your child. That's the main thing. Just really try to talk to them, slow your speech down, use less words, and reinforce and repeat things. Like, my kid needs to hear me sometimes 4 to 5 times until he can like calm himself down and hear me when he's upset. So like don't be afraid to repeat. I mean, sometimes like in my own life I'm like, okay, I don't have to repeat for adults this much. Like just because it becomes a habit, but that's definitely, if I would leave a parent with that, I would say like slow down, speak slowly, use less words, and try to communicate as best as you can.
I'm gonna say thank you because I needed that. As I'm still working on this, so I really don't have much, to say to a new mom because I'm still like a new mom. Um, but the breathing techniques have helped me. So when I feel like I'm frustrated with him, and it has happened a lot more times than I want, I start to do the breathing technique with him. I'm like this. And so when he sees me like doing that, he's noticed like, oh, she's upset because I can't. I'm like, okay, the screaming is getting him scared and is making him worse. So I'm like, I can't do the screaming. I noticed that, and I have to minimize my words. I've noticed that as well. So it is an amazing reminder to us new moms in this game. Well, I say it's a game because it is literally
You're
I
in
never,
there.
I never know what's gonna happen. It's not like a monotony here. It's a different game every day. Um,
Right.
and so I notice like on the days that I'm really like super frustrated and I can't get him to get it, like I will just sit on the floor with him and he doesn't look at me, but I'm just like, and when he sees me doing that, he'll be like, and he'll try to breathe with me, and then we're just, he'll sit on top of me crying, and then we're both crying at one point, and then we're like, okay. And I'm like, are we calm? I'm sick, breathe with mommy. And then we both breathe. And then it's like, okay. And then I just redirect. That's what I've learned. Like, redirect into something completely different. Because at this point, I'm not going to win. He's not going to win. I have no idea. I don't even know what happened because we already escalated to
Just hit
that
the
part.
reset button.
Yeah. So we like reset and we just like, okay, Play Doh, like something else like that he really likes. And then, you know, and that has helped me, but I have to constantly remember like, you know hey Susan, he's not gonna get it, so let's not say as many words, and like you said, like just slow it down. But sometimes I'm like grabbing him and like taking him out of the element and bringing him to his room, and like because whatever was happening down there, it wasn't gonna
Mhm.
help. And so,
Yeah.
I feel bad at that moment because I'm like grabbing him, and then I'm thinking to myself, what is gonna happen when he's 9 10, 13, and I can't
Can't.
grab him like that.
Can't.
So that's why I'm like,
Can't.
let's do the breathing. So maybe that'll keep, in the head, okay, she's pissed. Like, she's breathing
I love
heavy.
that you're modeling those behaviors already, though. That was going to
Yeah.
be part of my suggestion is to model the
Yeah.
behaviors that we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So when he's seeing you, okay, she's pausing, she's taking deep breaths. And I think eventually we see our kids pick up on those things as well. It might take them a little bit longer, or they might, need a little bit of time to process before they realize, like, oh, this is actually helping. These deep breaths. Maybe I need to squeeze something,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
or I have a corner I can go to, a little nook that
Yeah.
makes me feel safe. So just modeling those things for
Yeah.
them. I know it can be hard in the moment, and we're escalated and they're escalated, and just remembering that we want, they copy everything we do, monkey see, monkey do type of thing. And if we don't model that for them, they're gonna just, do what we do. They're
Yeah.
gonna scream when we scream. They're gonna react the way that we react.
Yeah.
So just sticking with it,
To that.
having those coping mechanisms, knowing our own
Triggers.
escalation cycle. Yeah. There's something called the behavior escalation cycle, and we all have one. So knowing our kiddos' behavior escalation cycle, knowing our own, so that we can catch that in ourselves and check ourselves. I need to breathe a little bit. I need to take a moment and say, you know what, son, mommy's a
Yeah.
little bit overwhelmed. I need a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm
Things
learning
like
with him every episode. I'm learning with him. I'm like, okay. And honestly, our behaviorist, she gave me that technique. She was like, when it gets like too much, bring it back and just breathe with him. And I'm like, so, if it had to happen, it doesn't happen all the time, but it's happened enough times that he's like, okay. And he'll still be screaming and I'm crying while he's screaming, but we're breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something he'll definitely remember, because like now that you are saying that, like I just remember so many times when my son was in preschool, like just that counting that back from 10, kneeling down to his level, holding his hands, doing squeezing,
Yep.
just to calm
For
him
sure.
down and help him regulate. They remember that, and sometimes, now the meltdowns aren't as frequent. They're bigger,
They're
but
bigger.
they're fewer in between, but they are bigger. There's more emotions there, right? And so, but he still remembers when he's in those really deep meltdowns. When he's at a point, because sometimes you got to let them get it out if it's a meltdown. I do counting, and he does remember that. And sometimes it takes many countdowns, and sometimes it's that rhythmic thing. And like Marcy said, like they model what we do. So like Kundalini, that definitely has helped me a ton, just because what do we always hear, Marcy? Like the breath will carry you. Like, so I
Always
feel
go
like
back to
that's
the
definitely
breath.
something, yes. And that's something that you want to offer to your children as early and as often as possible, because that's something that they can use even when you're not
Yeah.
around.
And teaching them like actual breathing, because the thing is, like, sometimes the breathing techniques are like very shallow breaths, but like teaching them like belly breathing, like breathing, like
Mm.
bringing the breath all the way into your belly, holding it, and then letting it out is so important. Another thing I wanted to touch on is that kind of, I came from the school, I'm 40, so I came from the school where like they thought about like pelas were like everything to like quote unquote fix behavior. I'm not, like, people are entitled to do whatever. Obviously, don't abuse your child. However, like, I feel like if your child is having an issue with violence, you responding with violence is not going to curtail
Not
that
gonna help.
behavior. So just like Belen said, and you ladies said, your child copies everything that you do. So you putting your hands on your child when they're being aggressive is not gonna be a good consequence. Not a good consequence. It's actually gonna increase that behavior instead of reducing it. So it's I feel like thinking outside of the box with respect to discipline and punishment, outside of what we were raised in, and kind of, I know self parenting is like all the rage now, but like thinking about self parenting, like how can we address these individuals who have all these feelings and they're having their own experience, which we don't own. How
Mm-hmm.
can we support them in becoming like adults eventually, even though they're like these little beings right now, but we're responsible for them being able to be
Yeah.
like proper people in society. So definitely, teaching them coping strategies that are positive is going to have success in the long run, even though in that moment, like let's say, like Susan, I felt that, like what you were saying, like in the moment you're like, okay, but like, long term it's going to help so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No.
learning
Yeah. And
and
I.
teaching them to advocate for themselves,
Yeah.
saying, I actually prefer this,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't like this at all. I don't want to do this. Go, is there another option? Is there, whether that's vocally, signing through their
Yeah.
AAC device,
Yeah.
whatever it is, just teaching them to
Teaching them.
that yes and no. Yes, I want to do this. No, I don't want to do this, or it's not preferred.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it's just giving them the opportunity for communication. Because, like, like commenting is not something that my son is able to do a lot of
Mm-hmm.
yet. But if there's one thing that he knows what to do is request with his talker,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
right? He's going to know
Can
how to
imagine.
request a food. He's going to know how to request
Yeah.
his iPad. He's going to know how to request a show. He's going to know how to request a break. He may not tell you, I don't want to do this, but if that talker's around and they know that talker's charged, they know they have access to that talker. You don't want to talk about reinforcing behaviors. I was a little quiet during potty because we still struggle with that in my
Mm-hmm.
home. You know what I'm saying? But if there's something that I'm always reinforcing with him is that talker piece wherever he's at, right? Because when you take away a child's ability to
Mm.
communicate, that is not allowing them to be
Mm-hmm.
functional. You want them to have functional communication, and that talker, use it. Like, just have it out.
No.
You're having a
Yeah.
meltdown. They may not be able to tell you X, Y, and Z, but they might be able
Mm-hmm.
to request something that they want. And that's something that you want to have that availability. Like, don't just leave the talker for
Mm-hmm.
school. Like, the talker's for home
Yeah.
as well. You
I
know what I'm
know.
saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
make them use that requesting for a food. They'll start using it for other
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah.
I know break. We've never used that in my house, but he started using it because he used it at school. But we use the talker for food all the time.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's
Yeah. I do
motivating.
it for food.
The device is motivating. So,
Mm-hmm.
give them that access to their devices, because like my child may not be able to tell you, I really don't like X, Y, and Z, but they might be able to hit break. And
Yep.
I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
do this. So,
Mm-hmm.
meet your child where they're at, and let's not expect perfection,
Yeah.
out of ourselves. We are
Yeah.
navigating very difficult waters,
Oof.
parenting and
Preach.
disciplining kids. I know, Marcy, I'm almost 40 this year too. And let me tell you, like, I never saw this growing up. Like, I never really did. Like, so for me, like, I was never around, like, my cousins were neurotypical. Everybody was neurotypical. So for me,
Mm-hmm.
like, parenting and disciplining, this is all new
Mm-hmm.
waters that we're navigating. So
Mm-hmm.
let's give some grace to ourselves.
Definitely.
Let's understand that our journey is not going to look like other people's journey. And we have to be okay with that too. And we're going to lose our
Sure.
temper sometimes. That's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. But like, definitely, I hear Marcy, like, let's be a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? Let's not just like our kiddos feel so deeply, even though they can't
Mm-hmm.
communicate. So you got to understand, like, they're feeling
Yeah.
you. Like, they feel you.
Yeah.
Like, like you said, they understand you're upset. They're getting it. They can't communicate to you. Sometimes, they'll give you that little extra hug at the end of the night
Yeah.
that you weren't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
That's I get it. So
Yeah.
like, they're
Yeah.
communicating with us and they're understanding,
Yeah.
but, let's all be,
Give yourself your
you know,
flowers that you
Oof.
exact.
Wow.
deserve.
Thank you.
I love you
Yeah.
girls.
Well,
So
I
y'all,
beat you all because I'm almost 50. And let me tell you, being raised in my
Generation.
generational trauma to the
Mm-hmm.
fullest. Like, so I have learned a lot with my youngest because I was always, I was raised with corporal
Mm-hmm.
punishment. So like, that's how they did to me. So I did it to my daughter and my son, I didn't do it. My middle child, I didn't do it as much to, but I also, he got a few cocotazos, a lot. And then this one, obviously I can't do that. And so I have to retrain my
Mm.
brain and myself. And that's why the breathing comes in a lot, because that's the first thing I try to go to. And I'm like, oh no, I can't do that with him, because I don't want him to turn around and do that, because his brain is wired differently. So so this is another podcast alone, Marcy. Okay,
For sure,
it's a
for
different
sure.
podcast. Okay,
Even the kind of like there were some parents I remember growing up with, like not my parent, but other parents that I saw, that instead of like hitting their kid, they were like be like really like bad with their words, and that's another thing that I feel like our
that's
kids
a
don't
different one.
understand either. So like I know
Yeah.
that our generation is shifting the paradigm and breaking generational stereotypes and generational trauma, because I
Yep.
feel like as
Hmm.
Latinos, we're all from like different backgrounds, but you know, we're creating a shift in the collective that is our kids are going to be able to have healthier remembrances of their childhoods, and
Yeah.
they're going to be able to come out into society and be functional members of society. But ladies, I want to say it was such a
Thank
pleasure. I would
you.
love to have you all on
This
again.
was fun. Yay.
Yes.
So I just want to
Well,
leave the parents with one thing, that there's no one size fits all approach. What works one day is not going to always work every single day, and that every child and every parent is going to have a different, like be entirely different. So it's up to us as parents to decide what works for us and what doesn't, that based on our children. You know, our children are the biggest, I guess, like on the spot feedback that we can have. So with that, I want to close out the show and say, follow up my amazing guests at their IGs. So I'm gonna
yay.
let you guys start dropping your handles. We can start with Susan.
You can follow my business, create a cocktail. And then my personal is Cocktails with Suji.
Okay, and Belen.
You can
Denisse, go ahead.
you can find me on Modern Dominican Mom on TikTok, and I'm
Ooh.
also on IG. My personal page is Denisse_B127.
And Belen.
My Instagram is at Bilingual BCBA. I provide little like early education tips, parenting tips, things like that. So yeah,
I
feel
love
free to
it.
check it out.
Follow.
All right.
We'll follow.
Thank you,
You're
Marcy.
welcome.
Thank you,
I just want
Marcy.
to say that
Have a good
if
one.
you guys have any questions at all, comadres, please feel free to send us a comadregram via email at marcy@comadreandopod.com or slide up into my DMs. Please visit our website, www.comadreandopod.com, to cap your latest merch. If you can see, I'm wearing one of the hoodies
Cute.
for the show
Yay. So
today.
cute.
So you can
Gotta
get
get
one
one.
of your own
Me too.
on the website, read our latest blog post, find out about future events, and find out about new things. I'm gonna drop the handles of all the ladies in the show notes, and I want to say thank you for spending time with your comadres. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Hello, comadre. Hey, comadre. Do you have a minute for comadre time?